Hello, my friends. HM here. Now, something amazing has happened. It started Wednesday and now it has blown up like a huge thing that will benefit Ukraine a lot in their war with Russia. What is it? It is Aleppo. It's a big city in Syria that has been taken over by Islamists from the Syrian regime troops and also Russians. All their weapons, and there are lots of weapons, hundreds of tanks and armored fighting vehicles, have been taken over together with ammunition and stuff by these Islamists. And now these Islamists are armed to the teeth and they can take the rest of Syria and kick the Russians totally out of Syria if Russia doesn't send a lot of troops and also a lot of air force to fight back. If they don't do that, they lose. And of course, that's a big win for Ukraine because they'll have to send these troops, and that means Ukraine will have to fight less Russian forces in Ukraine. But let's take a look at what I got on the news today. It's just enormously huge, and it's coming totally out of the blue. A big surprise, and something that Ukraine really need. If you think this sounds interesting, you should keep watching. Okay, so what I got here, the latest information is that the Syrian state TV report that the Assad regime has fallen in Aleppo, so this enormously large city. And it also says that Assad is currently in Moscow, he's visiting Moscow, and he has not returned to his country when he's losing his regime. What is he thinking? I have another thing here. I asked Perplexity what this was about and if it was Islamists that was attacking, because the media just write some names. They don't write whether it's Islamist or who it is. They just said some rebels were attacking. Well, these are Islamist rebels. They're against Shia Muslims. They're Sunni Muslims, these Islamists. And they are against Russians, of course. They're also against Israel. They're also against the Western world. These are ISIS, Al-Qaeda guys, but they're supported by Turkey, the NATO member, who is also becoming full-blown Islamist country. This offensive started on Wednesday. Now we have Friday, and that means Assad is in Moscow and having a nice time there, and his country is being taken away from him, and he hasn't even yet returned, apparently. That's crazy. That just shows that they don't know what they're doing. And that means these Islamists probably are going to win it, unless they do something quickly and start getting their acts together and start fighting back to these Islamists. Now, Russia will lose all the weapons they have in Syria if they don't send a lot of troops quickly and a lot of aircraft quickly. And of course, this is helping Ukraine enormously, that Russia will have to send tens of thousands of troops and hundreds of aircraft fighters to Syria. And even if Russia should be totally overrun here, well, it won't help Russia much that they can only come back from Syria with, I don't know, a few thousand troops that they will save out of this country, and that then can, of course, be used to fight Ukraine. But let's see what happens. I don't think Russia will give this area up and just lose it forever and get out of Syria. Also, it's a big blow for Iran, because Iran is supporting the Assad family, who are the Shia sect, and Iran is Shia Muslim. And that Assad sect, they're only 10% of the Syrian population, but they totally control that country. But not so much anymore. Now Aleppo has fallen. You could also say, what has happened here? Well, what has happened is that these Islamists I'll have to give them that. They are strategically really clever guys. They have been planning for this for a very long time. You don't just suddenly launch a major invasion into a major city like that. You must be amassing a lot of weapons. I think the Islamists have waited for the Israelis to weaken the Hezbollah forces that are also Shia Muslims, their enemies, the enemies of the Islamists. Now Hezbollah is weakened, their weapons has been blown up, and they are not the force they used to be just half a year ago, not by a long shot. And Israel has also been bombarding Assad forces and Iranian forces that are in Syria to support the Assad regime, so they're also weakened. The only thing that isn't weakened yet is the Russians. The Russians are still in full force in Syria, although those forces they had in Aleppo are gone, or they have fled without their weapons. Now I want you to show you this map here about where this is taking place. Aleppo is a city in Syria, and this map shows you a map of Syria, put it in here by the yellow border. All of this here is Syria, including this particular part down here. And Aleppo is up here, a city of 2.3 million people. And down here we have Damascus. That's a city of 2.7 million. Damascus is Syria's capital and the biggest city in Syria, but Aleppo is the second biggest city of Syria. Now, Syria is not really a state, it's a failed state, and there's a lot of different groups that are living there and they all hate each other. Let me show you an ethnic map that is right here. This is a map of Syria. All the different colors are showing where different ethnic groups are living. And as you can see, it's just a map of a lot of different colors and they are all living all over the place. This white area here where there's no color is basically a dry desert where no people live. Where do the Kurds live? The Kurds is a people of about 40 million people that live both in Turkey and in Syria, and a few live in Iran and also Iraq. But most live in Turkey and also several millions live here in Syria. Now, the Kurdish people are actually some of the Muslims in the world that have traditions for democracy and also respect for women that resembles that of Western living traditions. They're nice people and they're also Muslims, but they're just nice Muslims. There are not that many nice Muslims. Most Muslims hate Western principles of living and they want authoritarian rule like the Islamist Muslims. But the Kurdish people, they want to have their own state. They don't have a state. And what I'm saying is that they deserve a state. They have their own unique language. They're also friendly with Western countries. I'll change my map to this Google map here. So down here we have Israel and up here we have Syria. And down here this red one and the blue one here is Lebanon. Now I have divided this Lebanon into a South Lebanon and a North Lebanon. The reason I've done that is that there's also a lot of ethnic splits in Lebanon, and the blue area here, South Lebanon, is mainly where all the Christians and the moderate Muslims live, together with the Druze community that are neither Christians or Muslims. They're kind of having their own religion. And then we have North Lebanon, where all the Islamists are living. Two kinds of Islamists, and they both hate each other. The Sunni Islamists, that's Al-Qaeda, ISIS-style guys. And then we have the Hezbollah kind of Islamists that are the Sunni Islamists. And they live up here. Now, I've been thinking about that Israel and the Kurds should perhaps exploit this opportunity that has opened up with the Islamists attacking Aleppo and actually taking it, and now pressing the Assad regime very hard. Why not create a new Kurdish state that will border Israel and that goes all up from this area up here where the Kurds are living in force, and it could have a border that is split by this natural waterway that is a good defense line to have, and then it could have a border that goes from here and all the way down here to Lebanon, like in a straight line from here. Now over here, this big area here, you could say that would be impossible to defend. Not really, because it's not populated at all. It's just a big dry desert. All the people that will live here is living down here. Down here there's not particularly many Kurds, but there's a lot of Druze that are living there. And the Druze are friendly people. They're not really Muslims, not really Christians, but they're friendly people. They could easily imagine themselves living in a Kurdish state, also because the Kurds are nice people. And they could have a joint country here, a Kurdistan, but that will also give the Druze a lot more freedom to live their lives as they please than they currently have under this Assad regime that is basically 10% of the population that are Shia Muslims that are suppressing and exploiting everybody else. That's what the Assad regime currently is. So they could create a much better country, but of course they can't do it without Israeli help, because they have to take Damascus, a big city, can only be done with Israeli help. But now there's an opportunity to do it, because Russia has a big war going with Ukraine. They're buckled down there really hard, and it put a limit to how many forces they can put into this effort here. It's a historical chance for Israel to create friendly neighbors around themselves, and also for Kurdish people to finally get a state that they deserve. There are 40 million Kurdish people. Most of them live in Turkey, but also several millions live here in Syria and also in Iraq and Iran. And it's about time they get their own state. And they could get it now with this historical opportunity. Had it not been for the Ukraine war, had it not been from this Islamist takeover of Aleppo, I'd say it would be impossible to imagine that Kurdistan could arise in Syria. But now it is, if Israel is willing to do this and they take the opportunity to get this done. And another thing I should say here is that why do I have this division of Lebanon? Well, Lebanon is also a failed state, and maybe it's time to split Lebanon into two countries that can actually work. One that is Islamist, that would be the red up here where all the Islamists live, and then down here the blue one, that will be another independent country. That will be South Lebanon, where all the Christians and the moderate Muslims live, and also the Druze. I think that will be a much better solution. It will bring permanent peace to this area. Maybe there will be war with the Islamists here on this border, because the Islamists are authoritarian. They want to expand their caliphate, and yes, there will be some war going on here. But at least for Israel's point of view, the war will have moved further away from Israel, and Israel can help the Christians and the Muslims here fighting the Islamists, and they can also help the Kurdish state here defend their country from these Islamists that will probably control a lot of Syria up here around Aleppo. I don't think they will control the coastal area, because that's a strong base for the Assad regime sect. They are Shia Muslims, and they have a strong base here. And you can also see they have this territory here where there's a lot of mountains, so it's easy to defend. And also Russia has a military harbor here where they send in all the equipment for the Russian military in Syria. So I think the Alevites, I think they're called the Shia Muslims that compose this Assad regime, they will be fleeing down there to their base and keep that territory. Then we'll have Islamists here in North Lebanon, and we'll have Islamists up here in this Aleppo area, and they will control that. I think that could be a better way to divide the world for a more peaceful future down there in the Middle East than it currently is, because it's just ripe for eternal war. And I think we should create some new countries there to make it more just, and also to have less war in this area in the future. But I think that is enough for this video. I have another video forthcoming that will be about how to create a stronger and better NATO, because the current NATO is ripe with problems. It's basically dead, and it cannot defend democracies against authoritarian regimes that are attacking us. It's no effective defense. It doesn't have any defense at all for social media war that is going on, that NATO has no clue how to do, no strategy. But I've created a new organization. It'll be a NATO organization that's much stronger and that tackles all the problems that NATO has. And that'll be my next video. But anyway, subscribe to my channel if you want to see that video. And all I have to say now is have a great life in freedom and democracy. Goodbye.